Oh my god, so many leathers in my bags in just a couple of minutes. Woo, look at that farm spot. And man, these are pretty high quality stuff. I can actually craft something with my leather working. And skinning is pretty cool. And maybe you thought the same way. And that's probably why you're here. So let's talk about skinning today. What you need to know, picking up skinning, and how to maybe get more out of it. You want to make some gold? You want to be the best leather worker and you don't want to buy stuff from the auction house? Listen. Prices are very subject to change based on your server, so we're not going to talk about that. So, keep that in mind when deciding if you want to make money with skinning or if you just want to have fun with the gathering profession and you want to know how to kind of optimize it and make the most out of it. Plus, there's probably at least one thing in this video that you might not know about skinning, and if that's the case, maybe by the end, when you've watched the whole thing, you can leave a comment down below and tell us if we were able to tell you one thing that you did not know about skinning. Maybe two, maybe three, maybe a lot more. So let's actually talk about one of the coolest gathering professions, because it takes you out there. It takes you out in the wild of the Unaran Plains, and sometimes Azure Span. Although not the most common question asked, some people do actually wonder, since they would want to have like the best skinner in their arsenal, what is the best class and spec? Well, surprisingly enough, there are some combinations that are actually better now in Dragonflight as a skinner than before, because some of the ratios have been adjusted to kind of factor in the new profession system. First of all, the big elephant in the room, not so big because it's kind of skinny and needs more meat on its bones, Evoker, the drag tier specifically, since Evoker is, is the race that you really want. You have the passive Discerning Eye, which gives you 2% perception. It's one of the secondary stats for gathering professions, which we will talk about in a bit. And specifically, we would recommend you play Devastation. Obviously, you can kill beasts faster, so you can farm faster as well. Although, depending on your group farming situation, you might be asked to go Preservation, which is not really a big deal. But Drag tier Evoker is definitely one of the classes that you can get to maximize your gathering professions, specifically skinning as well. Worgen is even more specific as a skinner. Probably Beastmaster is the best class for Worgen, considering Beastmasters as a whole are one of the best classes to use skinning on, since you can just use your pets aggro and multi-picking things, because you can shoot everything all around to gather mobs and just skin them all. Plus you have the passive, of course, Flare, which is, the Worgen racial, that gives you 5 skill points, not to be confused with the knowledge points, but it's just your skinning has plus 5 skill points above everybody else. And you also have 25% deafness, which is pretty cool. Deafness only in skinning, by the way, and that makes you just skin faster, which is actually pretty good, especially when you're farming mass beast skinning. Another one that's a little less ideal, but more so in the class spec combination, that is the Druid, the Guardian Druid. You can choose whatever class you want for this. However, if you do want to make an optimized gathering class, you might as well do Torrents, since Torrents have better herbalism skills also. So if you want to make like a 2-in-1 gathering bonanza, then a Torrent Guardian Druid would be good. Guardian Druid mostly because you are a tank. You're very mobile. Druid can swiftly shift into forms, travel a lot. Although you do have Dragon Riding, you can switch into travel form. And being a tank definitely helps surviving, pulling big packs of beasts and skin all at once. Not to mention, Druid Bear is just a really good class to farm content with if you're going to choose a tank to ever do this kind of stuff. And with that out of the way, let's actually talk about the actual skinning. Now, I don't know when was the last time that you skinned any types of beasts in World of Warcraft, but in Dragonflight, the way that this works is as follows. First of all, you have 2 main materials that you can gather. We'd call them the normal materials. You have the resilient leather, which you normally get from beasts that, you would assume they just give you leather, and adamant scales, which are from tougher beasts like dragons and lizards and stuff like that. These are the 2 main normal ingredients that you'll be looking for, and you do have a chance to also skin rare items, which we've had before, basically hides. You have the dense hides, which you'll usually find in beasts that also give you resilient leather, and you have the lustrous scaled hide, which you would find in beasts that give you adamant scales. So they kind of make sense from a, synergistical point of view. And these are, let's say, the rare type of materials that you can find basically with the blue text. You also have special materials. These are more catered to the specific type of beast that you actually farm. They're, let's say, green in color, you'll notice them, and there's 7 of them in total. And although not necessarily a green special, you also have the Flawless Proto-Drake scales, which are essentially blue in their quality. I don't know why they're blue, but you can only get these from Proto-Drakes, which is a little bit, you know, kind of weird since the rest of them are, you know, uncommon in their quality. But going into the rest of them, you have Crystal Spine Fur, which you gather from Quill Beasts. You can find these in specific packs and camps in Azure Span. You have Rock Fang Leather, which are gathered from Rock Fang Cats. There's a really good farming spot in Honoran Plains. You can also find them in Thaldraszus as well. Cacophonous Thunder Scale from Thunder Lizards. You'll find Thunder Lizards around the Dragonelles, but probably the best spot to get them from will still be Honoran Plains. Fire Infused Hide will be gathered from Fire Beasts. You might have seen these in the Jarden zones in Waking Shores, basically the fiery mammoths and things like that, fiery hawks and birds and things of that nature. You might find them in other zones as well. Pristine Vorkin Horn, obviously from the Vorkin horses or stag type beasts that you'll find in Thaldraszus as well, but you'll find them in other zones also. Salamander Scales are gathered from lizard-style beasts that you might find near rivers, also in Honoran Plains. Honoran Plains usually has pretty much all of them. And Windsung Plumage from actual birds, also most prevalent in Honoran Plains, but obviously it depends on where you are in specific zones. They're pretty widespread with certain concentration in specific zones where thematically they would belong. And these special materials are basically used by skinning and also used by other professions, which are something that you might want to look for. Now, when it comes to leveling skinning, there's not much to say here. We would recommend taking skinning as you level through Dragonelles if this is your first character. If you already maxed, then, you know, you just take skinning. If you already have skinning from, I don't know, Shadowlands or BFA or anything like that, the first time you skin a beast in the Dragonelles, you'll automatically learn skinning. Otherwise, you would have to visit a trainer, the first one being in Waking Shores, and you'll find trainers spread all throughout the zones in different types of camps. And in terms of actual leveling, pretty much any beast that you skin will give you skinning points, skill ups to just level up your skinning. There's no level requirement. There are no certain beasts that stop giving you skilling leveling points after a while. You can just essentially skin the same type of beast forever until you get 100 in skinning, which is pretty good. Obviously, you can go to farm spots, which is probably the best way to level if you feel like you need to level the skinning. This is not a big importance to reach max, but leveling up skinning will unlock specializations, which are probably the things that you would want to get as fast as possible. So, you know, there's no point in delaying the leveling of your skinning. Also, in terms of leveling skinning, whether or not you pick up leatherworking in conjunction or you simply do the quest throughout the zones, you'll eventually pick up the skinning equipment, which I strongly recommend you do get. The leatherworking profession makes your cap and your pack style equipment, while the blacksmithing profession makes the smock. These are the only 3 tools or equipment essentially that you will use for your skinning, coming in different quality depending on their eye level. And lastly, to get better at skinning and leveling it quicker, you can definitely use Dark Moon Fire Water, which you can probably find off the auction house now that Dark Moon is over or whenever Dark Moon Fair comes back. And this makes it all go super smooth and way faster. And before we go into the actual specialization, it is important to talk about the knowledge points, which is something that you'll find a lot of sources on online, so hopefully we can make it a little bit more straightforward and easy for you to follow and understand. Knowledge points are essentially like talent points. Specializations in each profession unlock different perks and bonuses that make it better for you to do certain things with your profession. You want knowledge points. You want as many of them as possible, and by just, you know, playing the game, you'll naturally unlock these knowledge points. There's a couple that you'll almost automatically get. For instance, you'll get simple knowledge points from actual skinning beasts. Once per week, you can loot the large sample of Curious Hide. This has a lockout reset. You can only loot this once per week. It's an epic quality. It highest drop chances from mirror lurkers, but you can probably find it in any type of beast that you do. The drop chance is pretty low across the board, and the difference in drop chance between mobs is probably not going to be something that you will feel. And I don't know if I would recommend you farming mirror lurkers just to get this one Curious Hide, which gives you 2 knowledge points. Besides this, you have the, let's say, the rare version of these hides or scraps that give you the knowledge points. You have Curious Hide scraps, which gives you 1 knowledge point. highest drop chances from Adventurous Argali and Wild Proto Drakes that you can find all throughout the world. Once again, I don't recommend farming this. I have tried it. I farmed hundreds and hundreds of Wild Proto Drakes and haven't dropped once, while I farmed other beasts that had a lower chance of dropping this, and I've had several of them. Another one is Saturated Bone, also giving you 1 knowledge point, and this has the highest drop chance from Crack Strike Windhoofs, which of course you can target if you want, but once again, I would recommend just skinning what you need, and you'll eventually get these with a low drop chance, but you'll eventually get these nonetheless. Another way to get knowledge points is from Inscription, with the Draconic Treaties on skinning. These can only be gotten if you put up a work order for them. You cannot buy them off the auction house yet. I don't know if they're ever going to be available. Or obviously, if you're a skinner yourself, you can make them for yourself, which give you 1 knowledge point. They're pretty pricey. Not too pricey, but you probably won't be able to buy like dozens and dozens and dozens unless you're like, you know, swimming in gold. Another way to get knowledge points is from your profession master. Now, these are not very straightforward. These have a secret location that you will probably either luckily find or might have to look for. For this one, the Zenzi profession master, which is in Waking Shores, you'll see the coordinates for it on your screen right now, and you can find it and get a one-time boost to your skinning. Other ways to get knowledge points will not be open world treasures, which you might have seen from crafting professions like leatherworking and blacksmithing. You might have heard people tell you about this, and you might be confused as to why you're not finding any. These will only apply for crafting professions, but you do have alternatives. First of all, what you might want to be interested in is reputation unlocks with the Iskara and Maruk, which are the 2 factions that will give you recipes and also skill ups. By getting both professions to Renown 15, you will get +5 knowledge points from each, and another +10 when you reach +24 Renown with both of these professions, among other bonuses that these factions will also give you recipes to craft different types of things with your leatherworking as well, which is really good, especially if you combine your skinning with leatherworking. One other thing that's probably more sought after are the Dragon Shards of Knowledge, which are the purple epic dragon shards. To unlock these, you first of all have to do a quest in Honorum Plates. The quest starts from a gift from Miguel, which is first encountered in the Waking Shores. That is the quest line, but the one that you will actually want will be the That's My Speciality, which will reward you with 1 shard. You'll have the Wonders of the World, which gives you another, Master of their Craft, 1 last one, and the Worthy Hunt, the last actual shard of knowledge, which you'll get 4 guaranteed from just doing these quests, which are the profession quests, which I believe you'll probably finish all of them in Unarmed Plains if you do follow the trail of quests. And past this, once you unlock Kadim's Wisdom, which is basically the end reward for this quest chain, you'll be able to have a chance to find them in Scout supply packs and throughout the Dragon Isles. The drop chance is very, very, very low. I think I managed to find 1 or 2 on top of the original 4, and I've been pretty much farming, skinning, and treasures all throughout my hours playing WoW for the past couple of weeks. Some people are a little bit more lucky, but there you go. You can also get knowledge points from the bi-weekly profession trainer quests that you will find in Valdrakken. First of all, you need to have world quests unlocked and your skinning to be at least 50. If you just naturally level through the Dragon Isles, you'll be way above 50, maybe even max by the time you even get to Valdrakken, so this is not normally going to be a problem. However, for the world quests, you do need to be 68 to unlock them and finish the story. Obviously, if you did it on your main, you don't need to do it on your alt if your skinner is going to be an alt that you made specifically for this. You will get the quest scaling down from Ralathor the Rugged, which will not shut up. Basically, everybody has a problem with this. But you will get this, and to turn in this quest, you'll just need 2 Lustrous Scaled Hide for rank 2, as in quality 2, and you will get Skinning Field Notes that will give you knowledge points. If you just have these 2 scaled hides, you'll instantly turn it in. It's no biggie, super easy to do. You'll probably naturally have these scaled hides if you've done any type of skinning of any beast that gives you any types of scales. Another thing that probably you might have noticed if you've played in the last week or so, depending on when you're watching the video, or you might have heard other people do this, is from Dark Moon Fair. Dark Moon Fair has had profession quests for the longest time, and adapted to Dragonflight, the NPC Kronos, which you can find in the Dark Moon Fair zone, will give you the quest Tan My Hide. By just gathering a couple of leathers and skins around the zone, you'll get the reward to get +3 skinning knowledge and 15 artisan metal, and also, you know, basic skinning skill for your classic skinning, which I don't know, maybe you want that, but hey, this is a good source of getting that knowledge. And lastly, Artisan Consortium is basically the faction for professions that will give you a bunch of quests, and you'll probably want to do all of them, but one specific one in Valdrakken is going to be the Quartermaster, Rabul. And you can buy from this Quartermaster Skinner's Notes, depending on the level of reputation that you have. Doing more quests increase your reputation, and you can buy these multiple times. You can only buy one specific one time, but for each reputation level, you'll unlock multiple versions of these skinning notes that will give you knowledge points. This is definitely something that you need to look out for, and you'll have dailies with these guys as well, mostly for crafting orders, but hey, if you have a crafting profession as well, you can probably take that into consideration. And with all these knowledge points information, I think we got them all. I don't know if there's one that we missed. If we did, let us know in the comment section below. We can actually go into specializations. This is a whole bit, a chunk of information as well. Skinning has 3 main specializations. You have tanning, harvesting, and bait crafter. Tanning is what you would probably think a specialization for skinning would be. Putting points into tanning essentially gives you extra skill points for skinning, making it better and easier to, you know, gather high-level, high-quality stuff. It also unlocks refining hides to increase the hides quality level, since we do have this quality thing from tier 1, 2, and 3. If you want more details on the basics of this, you can also watch our main profession guide video that we just released a couple of days ago. And refining hides is definitely a good way to get rank 3 hides, and you can also have sub-specializations, which are scale mastery and leather mastery. Scale mastery obviously unlocks, you know, more stat points into skinning scales, and also gives you the option to refine skills, which is really good. Similarly, leather mastery does something the same. It just gives you more stat points into skinning beasts that give you leather, and also unlocks you the ability to refine leathers to a higher quality. Harvesting is where we're getting into some of the more interesting stuff. First of all, it unlocks you dealing damage versus beasts. It's basically a hidden buff. You just do more damage to beasts and dragonelles, which is definitely something that you're probably looking into if you're going to be farming skinning in any capacity. It also gives a buttload of deftness, which is really good. Deftness essentially makes you skin faster, which is definitely what you want when you're farming hyper spawn spots that just give you a lot of beasts to skin. On top of all this, you get a couple of unlocks. First of all, you unlock curiously shaped stomachs. These are basically containers, stomachs, woo, that give you materials for all professions. If you want to, for some reason, either sell them or you have multiple Rs for multiple professions, take this into consideration because you can get mats from other professions from this. You also have Trophy Collector, a sub-specialization from harvesting. This essentially gives you a higher chance to gather specific materials, like the special materials we talked about, the green text uncommon type materials. It also gives you perception stats, which is basically the stat that lets you have a higher chance to skin these from a specific beast. You have Meat Carver, a little bit less interesting one. You essentially have a higher chance to gather meat from skinning beasts, which is definitely used in cooking. The value of this, you know, takes into consideration if you have cooking, if your server or region wants these materials in the auction house to buy them, so, you know, up to you. I wouldn't see much value into this, even though I'm a skinner. Fishing is probably still going to be better. Lure Crafter, speaking of, will let you craft fishing lures to basically make you better at fishing specific fish, which obviously if you have fishing, this is something that you might want to look into, at least to unlock it at the very least. And the last big specialization for skinning is Bait Crafter, and this is where the meat could be, at least at the beginning of the patch, until probably everybody gets this and it might not be a problem anymore. First of all, it lets you craft bait to spawn a beast, which is pretty cool. You craft the bait, it spawns a elusive version of a normal beast that has a higher chance of giving you a special item. The bait has a cooldown of 12 hours, and every time you skin, you shave up 10 minutes off of its remaining cooldown, which means that if you're hyper skinning, you'll likely have this pretty often. This is okay. It obviously works better if you're in a group and everybody does this, because everybody gets to take advantage of that elusive beast and get the special materials. Obviously, this is where farming in a group is way ideal, especially if you specialize deeper into Bait Crafter, since now, as you may have noticed, skinning is not specific to one person. Everybody that participated in the kill of a beast, as long as that beast is taggable, will receive the benefits of skinning. The first sub-specialization for Bait Crafter will be Mastery, which is okay. Some of the first perks that you will unlock is basically getting a faster cooldown on your bait, which I said, like, once again, if you're hyper skinning, hyper spawn spots, it might not make a lot of difference. You'll probably have bait sooner, but hey, it depends on your group and the rate at which you do things. The second perk that you will be interested in is the possibility to draw elites from your bait, which is obviously better, higher chance to gather higher quality materials. And the last one is to target beasts you draw for better rewards depending on the zone. Each zone, obviously, like we mentioned before, has a specific beast style ecosystem, right? You would probably find rock fangs and thunder lizards in unarmed plains. You'll probably find Vorkins in Thaldraszus. So if you are in a specific zone, putting a bait down will draw specific beasts akin to that specific zone. Or similarly, if you're in a hyperspawn spot, you'll draw more beasts of that same type. Elemental Infusion is the last sub-spec and probably the most valuable, at least right now. It will probably change based on how many people start to do this, but Elemental Infusion essentially makes you able to infuse your bait with a specific element. This is how skinners are able to gather the Rousing Decay, Rousing Titan, Rousing Order rather, or Rousing Frost, and so on and so forth, the way that herbalism and mining can also do. This is basically gradually unlocked as you put points into Elemental Infusion, obviously the Titan being the most, or the Order rather, being the most valuable at the moment. For me, in the way that my leatherworking is working right now, I just need a lot of decay, and I have, unfortunately, did not place any points into this. I did not think it was very valuable, but I will give you some tips and what I would recommend you guys do with your skinning. But this is something that you need to take a look into. Obviously, if you do intend to use Elemental Infusion to make better crafts and potentially make some gold, I would advise you to check your auction house and to try to see what the prices for these elements are. And if they're decently high, then maybe it's worth going into Elemental Infusion. And with that out of the way, what are the best way to actually spend points? What would be a guide overall to give you guys so that you can actually specialize even deeper and make your skinning even better? With a quick disclaimer, there are as many best ways to, or basically skinning guides out there as there are specializations and what you want to do. It's not as straightforward as before. I just want to gather most of them, because specializing in a specific material type or specific skinning activity like skinning beasts or collecting trophies or getting stomachs or all of that is definitely one part of skinning. Eventually you'll unlock everything, but until then it's gonna be a grind, so you might as well go deep into one thing that you might think is valuable and get the most out of it. Now, the guide that I will basically present to you will be a little bit more general. It's what I wish I would have done going into skinning. Also, as a leather worker, it's a little bit more general, so try to make changes based on what you normally do as a skinner and maybe even crafter as well. First of all, the first unlock when it comes to skinning as you level up your profession will be harvesting, because it just gives you the extra damage versus beast, obviously making leveling, first of all, way easier, but also farming way easier. The second thing to unlock in terms of specialization will be Bait Crafter with no points. You don't have to put points, just unlock it, similar to harvesting. You want that creature bait because it just adds one extra beast to your arsenal and essentially just gives you more special materials. At the beginning, it will be important, especially if you do have leatherworking in conjunction with skinning. And of course, tanning is also going to be important. Not ideal, I wouldn't recommend you unlock this first, but third unlock as you reach the end of your skinning leveling. Also, you don't have to put points, just unlock it for the first time. After that, I would recommend you put 10 points into Bait Crafter to unlock further sub-specializations. The first one that I would actually recommend you max is Elemental Infusion, especially if you're doing this right now before everybody else gets into the biz. You want Elemental Infusion so you can actually take advantage of it and skin a lot of beasts that give you elements. Elements are basically used by all professions and all aspects of crafting in Dragonflight, and if anything, if you don't care about crafting anything with them, you can just sell them off the auction house and make a decent penny. Keep in mind that the best way to use the Elemental Infusion aspect is to actually do it in groups. There are groups that are farming special elements. It depends on your server, of course. You can look in the group finder and see how many there are, and if this is something you're comfortable doing, then definitely go for Elemental Infusion. It will be very, very worth it. The next thing I would recommend you max out is Tanning or Trophy Collector, because Tanning basically just gives you more skill points overall in skinning, making skinning better, but also Trophy Collector gives you the special material, so it kind of depends exactly on what you want. Also 10 points into harvesting, essentially, to be able to do this. Special mats sell for less on my server, for instance, because everyone is getting trophy collector and the prices are even lower than the actual leathers and scales, which is ridiculous, but it's definitely an indicative metric of people just getting massive trophy collector points, because everybody's just putting like thousands and thousands and thousands of these, you know, pristine Virkin horns and special scales and all of that. But at the same time, these materials are definitely something that other professions will want, and not everybody can get them, so there might still be some demand. While tanning can just be better, especially if you have leather working, will giving you more leathers, faster leathers, higher quality leathers, so that you can craft better gear. Next thing that you should max out is the lure crafter, especially if you are a fisher. Because fishing is obviously good, it's always has been good, but it's a very specific endeavor because it's not like any other farm. You just sit there and just fish for a long time. If this is how you spend your time in WoW, you definitely want lure crafters. You can target specific fishes, maybe for your own cooking, maybe for specific prices on your auction house in your region where you play. The next thing will be to max out either scale or leather mastery, essentially depending on which one you specialize in, if you are the leather worker or maybe the auction house has better prices for either one. It doesn't really matter which one you do, you will basically choose depending on your situation. And once you max out one of them, max out the second one, and essentially you'll be able to refine both of the materials to their max quality. Next one, max out mastery in general, and then max out everything else that is left. And this would probably be the best way to get skinning, in my opinion, at least looking how the market and the crafting market is right now on my server. And I am playing on one of the more populated servers on Horde EU, Terran Mill. So I would imagine that this would probably apply best for most high pop servers. This would probably be everything that you need to know about skinning. There are a couple of tips that I have gathered while skinning for the past couple of weeks that I can share with you. Hopefully these will help out. Essentially, depending on what you want to do, like I mentioned before, in terms of maxing out and putting the right points, that's one way to do it, that one that I just mentioned. But if you do think, oh, I actually want to do this, you don't have to go for elemental infusion, for instance. Max out whatever you want that you know 100% that you're going to need, because you will eventually have everything unlocked, but that will probably take a couple of months, or depending on how much you actually farm. Farm all of the disturbed dirts and supply packs that you fly over in Dragon Isles. They give you, obviously they give you a lot of rep tokens, but also have chances of giving you dragon shards and give you different types of materials. Go into groups to actually farm the specific leather materials that you want. It's way better, it's way faster. It's weird, some people might not be comfortable with doing this, that's fine. In that case, maybe play BM Hunter to just be able to farm properly. But going into groups is way easier, especially if you do have the elemental infusion specialization. Dark Moon Fair is your friend. It is the best of the friends that you have, especially at the beginning. It gives you skill points, it gives you a bunch of stuff, it gives you rep gains, especially if you want to get that rep with Iskara and Maruk to unlock different perks for your skinning. And that actually is the last tip on the list, is to actually level up your renown with Iskara and Maruk. Do the hunts with the Maruk and do the feasts with Iskara to gain as much rep as you can. Not to mention that if you do the hunts, you'll also get skinning options and possibilities that kind of offsets the fact that the repetition gain with the hunts is a little bit lower. But then again, you can spam the hunts all the time, all day, or every day. And this is pretty much the guide that we have for you when it comes to skinning. So let us know if you missed anything, if you've discovered something that could help anybody. Leave a comment down below. And if you want to see more of these for other professions, leatherworking, blacksmithing, mining as well, let us know also in the comments. Thank you, patrons, for supporting the channel. We love you guys. See you next time. Bye-bye.
I've been loving it then, I still love it now. Still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. Getting better every day, let me show you how. Cause still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. It's getting harder to stay, but at the end of the day, it's a guilty pleasure, so just log in and play. Whether it's classic or retail, I'ma do a /bow. Still, I play WoW.